Welcome to episode 2. Today we are in the Atlanta room at Meals on Wheels Atlanta, where their primary mission is to serve seniors. Hello? Hello? All the girls afraid to fail, are you there? Welcome to the podcast where we talk to women over 40 to learn all there is to know about growing up and succeeding. From activists and entrepreneurs to leaders of national organizations, we're getting every ounce of the tea. Let's go. We are speaking with Charlene Crusoe-Ingram. She is a visionary, and Atlanta Magazine honored her as one of their women of impact. From her time at Coca-Cola to now executive directing Meals on Wheels Atlanta, she is going to give us her top tips and keys to success. Let's get into it. Let's start off with a pulse check. If you could describe your mindset on life right now in 3 words, what would you say?
Gratitude, concern, and opportunity.
That makes sense. Why would you say concerned?
The environment in the country, uh, understanding the volume of seniors that we are currently serving, but also the volume that's on a wait list. I'm really concerned about that.
Mm-hmm. That makes complete sense. So, this podcast focuses on how failure can lead to positive life changes.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk to women over 40 to kind of get insight into how people in their 20s can kind of approach life and learn from these failures and things like that. So, can you talk about how you've experienced failure in your life?
Wow, I guess I would have to certainly go back to my uh, prior to my master's program in college. Um, I had a professor. I went to school at the University of Dubuque in Dubuque, Iowa, initially. Um, who one I was afraid of him and intimidated by him. It was a history course, um, and for the first time in my life, I just barely made a passing grade. Uh, and I accepted that for some reason. I made an excuse for that because I didn't like and I was afraid of my professor. I think about that in my life experience to I should have engaged with him. And I never did that during the entire semester.
And how does that change how you kind of approach situations now?
Uh, I think not losing confidence and instead of ignoring a challenge, take it head on. Um, Communicate, even express your vulnerability and that you are not clear. Having conversations, I think, bring clarity. We don't do enough communications
Exactly.
and not using email, but having a real conversation.
That makes complete sense. Is there one moment that kind of sticks into your mind when you had to approach a challenge head on where that initial failure kind of stuck in your mind or
Wow, uh, what would that be? Wow. I had an incredible experience in I had a fellowship um, for graduate school. I had a peer who also had the same fellowship in the department that I did, and um, it was intimidating. It felt like I think this person, female, very tall, um, imposing kind of person, but we had to collaborate. And I thought back at not talking to that professor in undergrad school and what that did. So, yes, I was intimidated by her initially. Um, so I sat down with her and said, we have to collaborate if we're going to be successful. So I guess I took that on, but I also had an incredibly supportive supervisor of my fellowship program. Her supervisor was a different person, but we were all in the same department. But yeah, that worked out. That was a really, as I look back on early years in my college life, that fellowship program I think gave me tremendous confidence.
And then you started out in HR at Coca Cola
Hmm.
and worked your way all the way up to a senior leadership position. So it's kind of hard looking back and saying, like, there's one thing that kind of helped you progress. But, like, what would you say?
I think at Coke I was incredibly lucky. I had some incredible supervisors. I, I started my career with a supervisor. Her name was Sharon Keating. Uh, but she chose me. She hired me. She moved me from Chicago to Atlanta. So I went in with a supportive manager, and I think that set me off. I was determined that I was going to be incredibly successful because I didn't want to disappoint her. And that I had a great time at Coke. Yeah.
You had this determination to be incredibly successful, to not disappoint her. But in previous interviews, I've also heard you talk about this idea of excellence and always showing up with excellence.
Absolutely.
So, can you talk about when you were 20? Like, is this what you imagined your life to look like? Did you always have this idea of success in your head, or kind of what has been your guiding light?
Well, I had two very supportive parents, uh, and grew up in a home where I knew, they loved me. And I was a pretty good student. So I think I was driven to not disappoint. I was driven not to fail. Uh, I got a full ride in undergrad, of course, full ride in graduate school. Um, which all gave me confidence. But for the first time in my life in graduate school, I had this supervisor, professor, who was a PhD African American female. I had never worked with that level of woman and happened to be African American. She was so supportive of me. Uh, and I always look back on my early years, the support and love of my family. uh, I just couldn't fail. I just couldn't fail. That was always in my head that I had to do excellent work. It was so important, and probably, yeah, I was driven to succeed, I guess. But I had to work hard, and I knew that, and I didn't mind that. Yeah, it gave me. Well, I was certainly rewarded by it. But it just gave me joy to do that as I think back on it. And I try to instill that same desire for excellence in my teammates. Um, and based on feedback and folks sticking with me over the years, I think we were able to achieve that kind of support. Uh, and I always tried really hard to find people to work with me to help me close gaps. You can't do everything in an excellent way. Acknowledge that. So I tried to acknowledge that, but find someone who could close gaps. I hated math and stats, and uh, but I learned that if I'm signing off on something, I better understand what's on that piece of paper. But I had to bring in someone who could literally codify the elements of the stats, what they meant, and then bring that to me and educate me. So, yeah, I think surround yourself with really smart people who want to be excellent in what they do.
That calls for a lot of relationship building.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you had one best tip in terms of like maintaining relationships throughout your life and throughout your career in the workspace, like how do you make sure to maintain those? Because I think we all come up short sometimes, but
Yeah, I believe that uh, communications is the key to beginning, the middle, and the evolution of any relationship. Um, you have to talk to people, try to understand where they are, and support them. Uh, if they propose an idea that you can't support, you got to be honest about that. But it's all communications. You got to say that to the person. I think with my teammates, especially at Coke, I try to be the word direct often came up in conversations, but ensuring that they understood and that I understood them. Uh, I think that calls for direct communications often. You can't be hazy. Uh, and I really believe that employees want you to be direct with them. They want to receive feedback, first of all, because I think feedback demonstrates to them that you care about who they are and about their development. And those are ongoing, everyday conversations. But it does, in my mind, go back to communications.
you worked in the for-profit space with Coca-Cola for a
Mm-hmm,
while.
mm-hmm.
And then before switching over to entrepreneurship in your consulting firm, and then now you're leading Meals on Wheels Atlanta. So did you always have this idea of like working in the for-profit space and then switching over to the nonprofit space later, or kind of how did that develop?
Um, no, not at all. I didn't always have that idea. At Cole, one of the really um, great things I think in my overall career there, Cole got you involved in community organizations, so nonprofit boards. So it was my experience on nonprofit boards that kind of set the pace for where I am now. I happen to be on the board of this organization. In fact, I was chair of the board at one time. Uh, uh, at the time, I was doing consulting after my retirement from Coke. And the person who was leading Meals on Wheels Atlanta left unexpectedly. And my fellow board members, we were beginning an executive search to replace him. And we discovered, wow, it's costly to do that. So they said to me, Charlene, uh, since you're retired, and I remember they used those words, I still was doing consulting, so I wasn't really retired. But they did say to me, "Would you be willing to do the job for 2 years while we find someone?" And I said yes to that. And I will tell you because I need to be engaging with things, changing things, hopefully adding value to things. When I came into this organization, it was at a time when change was required. So I was challenged by that. I always thought back to the incredible business experience that I had at Coke and how could we deploy some of those skills in this environment. So that was the challenge, and I ended up staying longer than 2 years.
Yeah. Because you're still here today.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
And so you talked about this, like you talked about your retirement a little bit from Coke and then starting in consulting before coming to Meals on Wheels. And do you ever get tired of working? Like,
Ah, uh, I don't. You know, I don't have kids. I have a husband. Uh, but if I'm not doing consulting or here, what am I going to do? We do travel, um, but I need to be energized by working with other people. Yeah, so I, I I probably will never retire. As long as I'm healthy and I believe that I can add value, give back, um, then I'm fine. I really do need to be engaged with work and outcomes. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're making them here today. I think 70% of Meals on Wheels Atlanta seniors depend on your organization as their only source of food. And so, how do you kind of deal with the pressure of that? How do you navigate that? And can you kind of walk me through that a little bit?
So it's not easy, uh, especially in the environment in which we are living today. Um, I believe no one wants to get old. So providing nutritional meals to seniors when you have to depend on raising the funds, which is our situation. We have to raise 97% of the dollars uh, to feed the seniors that we have. So that means it's individual donors, it's corporate foundations, family foundations, though that plus we have events. In fact, this property is used for a couple of events, fundraising events. Uh, and then that wasn't enough. The events plus those other categories wasn't enough in order to feed the seniors 2 meals a day. Um, so we've developed a social enterprise model where we've been so lucky, I will say. Meals on Wheels Atlanta owns this property, so we can leverage it for fundraising, which is what we do. We were able to, a few years ago, attract a former executive chef of the Four Seasons Atlanta, he had worked all in a number of places, New York and Hong Kong, but he wanted a life change. So he came to us at that point and helped us develop and establish a social enterprise called Purposeful Gourmet Foods. He does pecans in our catering kitchen and we sell them. We sell them online. We sell them at a couple of boutiques around the city. Uh, Hyatt Properties has those pecans. We try hard to be creative and innovative in revenue generating because we know that, and I'm not sure what, it's not sexy. Seniors, it's just that not sexy. I when I use that word, you know, we have some great supporters. I will say that, but it still has not been enough. Uh, and the other thing is, it's the baby boomers. They are they have risen, and that's the population that needs our support the most. So they're coming to us, and unfortunately we can't feed all of them. We do what we can, but that drives us to continually look for opportunities to bring in revenue. So our social enterprise is helping a little bit, and we're renting out spaces on property to tenants to generate revenue for us as well. Is it a challenge to ensure that we do those meals every day? Yes. We have not missed one meal to the clients that we're supporting, but we have a whole bunch of seniors waiting on a list to receive our meals.
I can imagine, especially with the political climate and everything going on. So, You talked about this idea of like no one wants to get old. So how do you stay young, innovative, and creative with all of these ideas that you're like helping push Meals on Wheels forward?
Well, since I don't have kids, what I've tried to do is bring in staff here um, who are Gen Z population. Because I think what nonprofits, all of them, be it a symphony or a museum, they're having to look for ways to attract a new audience, a different demographic. And we too are faced with that. So, what we've tried to do is bring a couple of staff people in who fit that population. And I have worked to listen and understand, and we've evolved some events that particularly speak to that audience. So that's one thing. Um, Surrounding yourself goes back to what I said with the Coke experience. Surround yourself with smart people who want to be creative, but importantly, they understand the mission. So they can be Gen Zers, but they need to understand what we are all about here in order to add value. And I think that's exactly what they do. Uh, I'm open to listening to them uh, because I think it matters to success.
You talked about skills a little bit and leveraging those skills where they
Mhm.
need to be. And you also talked about adding value to whatever company you're with. So, can you talk about how you found out what you were really good at early and kind of used that to add value?
Mm-hmm. So I've always been known, and I still am. I'm a pretty shy person and not very social. I still find it uncomfortable. Uh, but when I was at Coke, I was thrown into a role where I had to be very social. Um, I was the senior person in North America at the time, and we were trying to bring people into the organization, uh, have them understand our story and what we were trying to create in the future. So, really feeling passionate about our story in North America at the time and communicating that to people. Oh, you had to sell, basically. You wanted to sell them on an opportunity to join Coke. Um, and I we believed in practicing and rehearsing at Coke when we were having an event just to it you gain confidence through that and you get feedback before you're ready to execute. Um, I really do believe in doing that still. We do that here before a board meeting, before an important corporate donor or family foundation donor come in. We get ready for that visit. We owe them that respect, number one. But if we expect them to buy in, then we need to impress them that we know what we're doing. And I think I absolutely learned that from Coke. Um, you know, every day you need to build a brand, and that brand is all about one, understanding the product that you're trying to sell and selling it in a distinguishable way, in a different way from other products. And I think partnerships and relationships are built in that fashion. And that same idea is certainly present here. We have to sell people that we know what we're doing here. We never lose sight of our mission. It is very simple, and that is to feed hungry seniors. And we can do that with a passion, but everyone needs to be on board with it. Yeah, I learned a lot from Coke. I think that business experience, uh, that and the fact that I had a couple of really great managers while I was there. Yeah.
That makes complete sense. And if there's one thing that you could tell your 20-year-old self today, what would you tell her?
20 years old. God, I was shy and uncertain. Um, that those skills can be learned and built over time. So have a little patience with yourself. But also try to step up, try to force yourself to have a conversation with a person that you don't know when you enter a room. Force yourself, because it was forced, believe me. But yeah, confidence and not arrogance. I'm not talking about arrogance, but having confidence in who you are helps you to more effectively communicate.
That's amazing and so important. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh,
That will be it
absolutely.
for us today. But I really appreciate you taking the time and for all of the gems that you dropped.
My pleasure. Thank you.